welcome back to The Right Hand. This is the podcast for solo and small firm owners, practice group leaders, people who are building something special and meaningful. And basically, these people are discovering that growth changes more than just the size of your firm. And that's kind of what we're going to talk about today. Um, Today's episode is basically when your firm outgrows the version of you that built it, what happens? What do you do? Um, we're bringing this up because one of the most difficult transitions in firm ownership isn't, the legal transition, the operation, or even the financial. A lot of times, the most difficult is personal, and it's really how you think about growth overall. And when most attorneys think about growth, what they think about the first thing is numbers, more cases, more revenue, adding more staff. Um, but really, what I'm here to tell you is that the real growth changes is who you have to become. And the version of you who built that solo practice just through, hustle, long hours, et cetera, that's not the same person. And that's not the same version of you that you need to lead a team, to design systems, to think more strategically. And so there's a gap there. And that gap, the gap between who you were when you open the firm and who you now need to be, that's where the struggle begins for a lot of law firm owners and leaders. Uh, because when you start out building your firm, in the beginning, it's effort. You're doing everything, your hands on, everything that's going on in the firm. You're touching every file, every little piece of the firm. Um, you're the rainmaker, you're the lawyer, you're the administrator, you're the marketer, and you're the problem solver. So that identity to you, it becomes comfortable. It becomes a familiar thing to you. And without realizing it, you start to equate control, you having control over everything, with competence. And but there comes a time, there comes a point where control stops working. And and that control ends up becoming the bottleneck that slows you down and slows your firm down from growing. So because the decisions now becomes they slow down, um, the staff waits, growth plateaus, and those habits, those same habits that once made you successful, those exact same habits are the one that begin to limit. Um, because now you're working harder than ever, but you're feeling less effective. It's the old Dukes of Hazzard theory. Uh, they spin out Bowen loop, the tires spinning on the car, smoke coming out, everything, and all they're doing is going in circles. They're not really going anywhere. And so a lot of that is what happens. And so internally, what happens, there becomes tension. Eh, you ask yourself, why does this feel harder now than when I had nothing? Isn't it supposed to get easier as it goes on? So what is really happening is there's an identity shift. And you're being asked, you know, to do the same things. Well, you're asking yourself basically to do the same things um, now that you were doing before, even though things aren't exactly the same. Um, and you have to shift all of that. What I'm asking you to do to move forward is to let go of that version, let go of that version of yourself that built the firm, and step into that role that you more than likely were never trained for. You have to become that leader. that manager, that visionary, the architect of this new firm, this new version of the old firm. um, and this isn't a skills problem. It's an emotional one because a lot of times change and letting go and taking your hands off the wheel 24/7, that letting go of the control, it feels like loss um, for a lot of people. And even when it's necessary, a lot of people think it feels like loss. And a lot of firm owners, they end up resisting this transition. And they resist this transition because, control, when you have your hands on everything, that feels safe. If I'm the one driving, I feel safe. Um, Familiar roles feel comfortable. Um, Delegation, when you put it in the hands of someone else, it feels risky because we've always been taught if you want something done right, you got to do it yourself. The old adage. A lot of people still right, but but that's just comfort, and comfort is not the same as alignment, and safety is not the same as sustainability. And what happens? Growth. If you're going to grow, it demands evolution, not just expansion. You can't stay the same because there's a cost to staying the same. Uh, because when you outgrow your role, but you refuse to evolve, it's your firm in the end that pays the price. Your burnout increases, um, turnover rises, systems break, and internally resentment quietly builds. And that's you. You build this resentment towards your firm, towards your staff, and sometimes towards yourself. Why can't I get this thing going? What's wrong? What's wrong with me? And it's not because you don't care. It's what it is. It's the role no longer fits, and you have to find a different path forward. And the healthiest firm owners I know, they embrace this. That I have to move differently now because this is a different firm. Um, every new stage of growth requires a new version of me, and that's what we try to work with firm owners on. Um, Year one you is different than year five four you. Year four you is different than year 10 you. Year 10 you is different than year 15 you. Um, every stage of growth requires a new. Uh, what they did is they stopped asking, "How do I do more?" and and the main question is, all right, who do I need to become to make this more successful, to keep this thing moving, to move it in the right direction? And a lot of times they invested in leadership, uh, they built systems, they created support. I get a lot of law firm owners who say, hey, I don't want to practice as much, handle the day-to-day cases. I may want to just be a manager. Or, hey, I don't want to manage the admin and do the managerial things. I want to focus more on my high-profile cases. And it's basically a theory I say, you want to replace yourself. You want to find someone to do some of the things that you're doing right now. And embracing this idea and in doing this, a lot of times they're able to reclaim clarity, reclaim control, find that peace. That's very important. Um, so I just want to leave you with three questions before we get out of here. One is, has your firm outgrown the version of you that built it? Say it again. Has your firm outgrown the version of you that built it? Two, what are you holding on to that no longer serves your role? And three, who do you need to become next to take your firm to the next level? Now, you don't have to answer all these questions today, but you're going to have to answer them eventually because ignoring these has a cost. Um, let's get to work on this now. Let's think about it. Let's find some answers. Growth isn't just about building a bigger firm. Sometimes it's just about becoming a bigger version of yourself. I'm Greg Copeland. This is The Right Hand. See you next time.